Alright guys, this review took a turn that I was hoping it wouldn't. Donald Miller is back after his groundbreaker, mover, shaker, earthquaker, baby maker, building a story brand, and on my part, a perhaps speculative video about this book's contents 2 weeks before its publishing. Here we are. Hero on a mission. What's it about? What do we have to say about it here on this channel? How different is it, and how is it different from story brand? Probably very, but we'll see. In this video, I'm gonna summarize the book, include my thoughts on the chapters, or at least as much of it as I possibly can. Along the way, go over some standout quotes, who I recommend this book to, and what books to maybe check out next. What is the significance of a story? What is the significance of a story? Stories make up the fabric of our everyday lives. Stories are what makes the world go round. We don't follow influencers without stories. We don't watch movies or shows without stories. Stories get us to feel and do and learn and work and spend and play and relax and suffer and live and eat and sleep and even poop. Donald Miller regarded what others have said about where stories come from and where, and he eventually came to the realization that perhaps we write our own stories. To some people, this might be a little overwhelming because it's like, well, what if my story sucks? Other people are gonna have a better story than I do. Well, we'll go into all this. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sam, and I want to make self-growth normal because people shouldn't have to look this information up. It should just be mainstream knowledge. If you agree, then please make sure to smash that like button. The first chapter, the victim, the villain, the hero, and the guide. This chapter was like crazy because it just said to me, Sam, you're gonna finish this book and it's gonna be one of the best self-development books you've checked out in a long time. The way he introduced the idea of a hero who is not as strong as you would think, the victim who lives at the mercy of forces outside him, her, and themselves, the villain who in unexpected ways can be the truest victim of all, and the guide who always starts out as another of the three, very rarely the villain. It seriously reminded me of the comparison in contrast that you would find in a book like Rich Dad's Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. I get that it's a weird comparison because it's a finance book, but the following chapter, a hero accepts their own agency. A hero will accept their own agency. Sam, what does this mean? Like an agency of people who build spider webs that catch flying ice cream trucks so cartoon characters don't get hit by them and live? No, it's not an agency of people who build spider webs that catch flying ice cream trucks so that cartoon characters do not get hit by them and live, but that would be pretty cool, right? Agency is the ability to make your own decisions. You write your own story. For anyone else relying on anybody else to do it for you, although this is a slippery slope on its own and a mindset I would personally consider from experience difficult to get out of, is what the author calls victim energy. And damn, that was a long sentence. The very sad story of Viktor E. Frankl, who the author references many times in this book. Viktor E. Frankl is the writer of Man's Search for Meaning, what many would consider to be like one of the greatest self-development books of all time. A book I still have not reviewed, but should. It is told after Miller discusses an organization who rescues sufferers at the hands of human trafficking. These people are referred to as survivors and not victims. Then you have a hero chooses a life of meaning. Life invites us to create meaning and purpose every day. Freud proposed that we did things out of pleasure. Frankl proposed that we're motivated by meaning, and when there is no meaning, then we seek out desire. I think that this is all this is all so simplified. Like, it's so much more complicated than this, but that's probably a topic for another video. Nonetheless, it reminds me a little of the whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs that everyone learns in Psych 101 when they're in the middle of being hit by puberty like a freight train. But you know how your priorities are based on how well each layer of needs is met? Might I add, terms in Hero on a Mission like existential vacuum and narrative void, they don't begin to sound like a different language. You know how sometimes an author adds like 900 different terms, and if you miss a couple of them when they're explaining what it is, you're like, what the hell is he talking about? That doesn't ruin a book, but like, I mean, some parts of Atomic Habits were like this for me, and there are reasons Atomic Habits has sold like a bazillion copies. Then you have what elements are necessary for a person to transform. I genuinely don't remember the last time I listened to a book that dug so deeply into the concept of meaning and personal transformation. Maybe maybe Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins, maybe. But when I got to the chapter A Hero Knows What They Want, over time a critique I have became that the blend of relationships, these different characters that we went over, they have with each other, turns out to be like sort of an afterthought. Despite what seems to be a revolutionary concept it is. At least I would say. It becomes more about things, this book, like looking back on your life toward its end and what you want to have done that you'll be able to look back on then, making goals out of those activities and executing them daily. And then I got to the chapter, A Morning Ritual to Guide and Direct Your Story. This doesn't mean that I didn't like Hero on a Mission, but it took cohesion out of the book because, again, that first chapter lit a fire under my socks. Is that a saying? Do people say that? I don't know if people say that. I don't know. Meanwhile, the actual chapters are so solid. They teach excellent lessons. This guy has quite a head on his shoulders. One thing I'm sure of is that he and his wife sound like they're going to be excellent parents. The following chapter, A Eulogy, allows you to look back on your life before it's over. Again, I did enjoy this book. In fact, something I really like about Donald Miller as an author is in more of a self-development flavor title like this one, or really any by him, is that instead of using examples of legendary business people, artists, and or athletes to demonstrate his work and points, he uses examples from like legendary movies and shows, and I've never seen an author do this so prevalently in his, her, or their work. So as a writer in this genre, he, I swear, is so able to flawlessly stand out with just this. And then the next few chapters talking about a eulogy. A good eulogy talks about who and what the hero loved, and then a good eulogy helps you find narrative traction. Here's an example of just what quality content you can expect from Hero on a Mission. Children are perhaps the most powerful element in life to pull us out of ourselves. In fact, as I talked to other parents about what to expect when the baby comes, their descriptions were justifiably confusing. They talked about an explosion of love, but also an explosion of poop. In fact, in the weeks since we've become parents, the best synopsis I can give about parenthood is that it's like drowning in love. The night shifts, the lack of sleep, the inconsolable crying, the fear she isn't getting enough food and the room is too cold and she's not breathing quite right, drive a paranoia that's exacerbated by sleep deprivation, yet you somehow love the process, and the harder it gets, the more committed you are to the cause. He said it's like he and his wife Betsy have found themselves floating down the rapids of love, having their heads violently bashed against the rocks of joy and fulfillment. It's interesting. The next chapter is Write Your Eulogy. Miller included in this quite obvious examples from his own life. He even included in this chapter his own eulogy, and this is what he said was his actual eulogy. He wrote it and he isn't dead yet, so over time it'll change, but the ideas in this chapter are meant to get your imagination kind of flowing. And they definitely do, and he includes some eulogies from his clients as well. Then you have the chapter Cast Your Long and Short-Term Villains. Okay guys, it's just time for me to rip the band-aid off. This is another book that I took sort of like a week or two break from. And that does not happen at all. It's really rare. I don't know why, but every time this happens, I feel the need to mention it in a review. But I think the reason that I took a break from it is the first few chapters of this book gave me such high expectations for what the book actually was. And I genuinely was not expecting useful tips or strategies like a lot of other people might be with these books for laying one's life plan out. This is a topic that if I were the author, I would have honestly just saved for a different book. The first few chapters alone are worth more than the price of the book, in my opinion. Because the first few chapters alone discuss all of the roles in a story that we play in our own lives. It is so rare that my expectations for a book are set as high as they were with this one, with just a few chapters in the beginning alone. But those 4 different characters and the basis of what makes a good story, I personally think Donald Miller could have written this entire book about, and he kind of didn't. I mean, he could have put so much more emphasis on that, because they're just so different and powerful. Like, Hero on a Mission could have gone in such a different direction, and I hope I don't sound like a crazy idiot, or perhaps a villain by saying this. It's obvious that Miller writes a ton and reads a ton, but I just couldn't get behind the whole thing with the eulogies and the 10 and 5 year plans. The eulogy idea is actually pretty cool. It just had a place in some other book by him in the future. Ideally, these have been discussed more than enough by more than enough people to a degree where I would recommend that no author talks about them ever again. For goodness sake, like, stop this whole thing with the life plans. And lastly, you have the Hero on a Mission Affirmation Daily Planner, which is the last chapter. It's the same thing with the Life Planner and the Daily Planner. You have the role that matters most, the story goes on, and everything else. And I'm saying this all despite 1, his intentions, of course, 2, the quality of his writing, which is great, and 3, the personal examples, which by the way, I found pretty touching, and 4, his points. Like, I don't disagree with him, but I almost think that in some ways it's my fault that this book did not blow me away. But I don't know. I think it could have gone in a very, very, very different direction that was more about like what paths you could take and where they tend to lead you than these actionable steps on how to take just the one. This may sound kind of counterintuitive, but with these different characters, Miller seriously, I think, came across what could have been a total goldmine of a topic. I just think he could have expanded on in another way. Quotes: "We all surface villain energy all the time, sometimes depending on whether or not we skipped lunch. Sometimes people don't want you to change because it requires too much mental work to recategorize you in their brains. If you have mixed motives for feeding the hungry still get to eat, and I don't really think they care about your motives. Live as if you were living a second time and you had acted wrongly the first time." Direction 1. I recommend this book for anyone who feels kind of lost and isn't sure who they are. It may not be the best book out there, but you may like it much, much, much more than I did. And I cannot stress enough, even though I don't remember the last time I did, so I guess I could. Just because I was not too happy with a book does not mean that I don't think you guys should bother checking it out at all. These reviews, they're not meant to just help raise awareness and everybody's overall interest in self-education, but they're here to help you make buying decisions, really. And people have bought books through the affiliate links in the description that I really didn't even like. So this is just something to keep in mind. Just because I wasn't crazy about a book, it does not mean that I don't think you guys should bother checking it out. You might really, really like it. Direction 2. If you like this book, something about this book reminded me a little of The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And Donald Miller's other book, Building a Story Brand, was really, really cool. What I was hoping Miller would do, in his own way, was expand upon the 4 characters in each story the way Robert Kiyosaki did for each income method in his book Rich Dad's Cash Flow Quadrant. So if you're like, what the hell is this kid talking about? Cash Flow Quadrant might give you an idea. Plus, it's a brilliant book. Hero on a Mission by Donald Miller. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to get a notification whenever I drop new videos, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.